Ever wake up expecting the universe to be your personal genie, granting every wish on command, only to realize reality has its own plans? Today, we're diving into the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the unlikely philosopher whose meditations remind us that life isn't about chasing perfection. Instead of desperately wanting flawless days, ideal friends, or eternal youth, Marcus teaches us to embrace life just as it unfolds. Imagine swapping endless wishing for a resilient smile that says, "I'm ready for whatever comes." In a world obsessed with wanting everything from perfect bodies to uninterrupted success, acceptance is our secret weapon against disappointment. Embracing fate, with all its twists and potholes, allows us to laugh at life's little surprises and grow stronger through every challenge. So, if you're ready to stop battling the current and start riding the wave with humor and grace, you're in the right place. And hey, if you find these insights as eye-opening as I do, hit that subscribe button and join our journey toward inner peace and unshakable strength. Let's dive in and transform our struggles into wisdom together. 1. Accepting other people. Imagine you're at a dinner party, enjoying good food and conversation, when suddenly someone throws an insult your way, maybe a passive-aggressive jab about your career, your looks, or even something personal about your family. The room goes silent for a second. People glance your way, curious to see how you'll react. Your pulse quickens. Do you snap back with a sharp retort? Do you laugh it off awkwardly? Or do you sit there, stewing in quiet rage? Now, let's pause. How would a Stoic react? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What does that mean here? It means the insult itself is powerless. It's just words, sound waves moving through the air. It only has meaning if you let it. Think of an insult like a package being delivered to your door. You don't have to sign for it. You don't have to accept it. The moment you refuse to let the insult penetrate your peace, the power shifts, and suddenly, the one who tried to humiliate you looks kind of ridiculous. Let's switch the example. Imagine you're driving, and a reckless driver swerves in front of you, honks aggressively, and flips you off. A common reaction? Fury. You grip the wheel tighter, your heart pounds, and you're tempted to speed up and teach them a lesson. But then what? You get angrier, your stress levels spike, and maybe you end up in a pointless road rage situation. And for what? A stranger's bad driving. A Stoic would see it differently. They'd think, this person's anger is their burden, not mine. Their actions are outside my control, but my reaction, that's mine to govern. So, instead of letting rage take over, a Stoic would simply breathe, let the moment pass, and continue their drive with a peaceful mind. See, the world is full of insults, provocations, and unpredictable people. Some are ignorant, some are cruel, some are just having a bad day. But as Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone speaks ill of you, don't make it worse by adding your own condemnation. That means don't take an insult and multiply its impact by reacting with anger or sadness. That's like being hit with one punch and deciding to punch yourself 10 more times. So, what's the best response? There are a few options. One approach is humor. The Stoics loved humor because it neutralized tension. Imagine someone mocks your work, saying, "Oh wow, looks like you're really going places in reverse." Instead of snapping back, you smile and say, "I know, right? I figured everyone else was going forward, and I wanted to be original." Boom, you've disarmed them. Another approach is silence. Seneca, another great Stoic, advised that sometimes the most powerful response to an insult is nothing at all, just letting it hang in the air, unacknowledged. The moment you refuse to engage, you show that the insult is beneath you. And then there's the ultimate response, genuine indifference. Not the kind where you fake being calm while secretly fuming inside, but real, deep, unshakable indifference. When someone insults you, you simply recognize that their words are a reflection of them, not you. They're exposing their own insecurities, their own bitterness, their own worldview. When you master this, life becomes infinitely more peaceful. You stop wasting energy trying to control what people say or do. You stop getting emotionally hijacked by rude strangers, toxic coworkers, or family members who push your buttons. Instead, you channel that energy into things that actually matter: your work, your growth, your happiness. And here's the kicker: when you stop reacting to insults, people respect you more. They see that you're not easily rattled, that you have an inner strength they can't shake. That's why, paradoxically, the less you fight for respect, the more you command it. So, next time someone insults you, try this. Pause, take a breath, ask yourself, does this really affect me? And then, with a quiet, knowing smile, move on. Because the ultimate power move isn't proving your worth, it's knowing you never had to in the first place. 2. Accepting transience. There's a story about a man who built a magnificent sand castle by the shore. It was intricate, tiny windows, towers, even a moat filled with seawater. People stopped to admire it, marveling at the effort and detail. But then, as the tide rolled in, the waves crashed against it, erasing hours of work in seconds. The man didn't panic. He didn't scream at the ocean or try to build a wall to keep the waves out. He just watched, smiled, and walked away as if he had expected it all along. Because he had. He knew from the moment he started building that the tide would eventually come for his castle, and yet he built it anyway. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, would have appreciated the wisdom in this. He often reflected on how everything, people, empires, even the greatest achievements, eventually fades into nothing. He saw life much like that sand castle, beautiful, intricate, and entirely temporary. He wrote about how even the most powerful figures of history, those who once commanded armies and ruled nations, are now just names in books. He mentions the likes of Alexander the Great, a man who once wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. And yet, what remains of him now? A statue, a few stories passed down through the ages. Even the greatest warriors, philosophers, and kings have been reduced to dust. It's easy to see this truth and feel a sense of despair. After all, if everything fades, if even the most remarkable people and achievements are eventually forgotten, what's the point? Why strive for success? Why chase dreams? Why bother doing anything at all? But that's where the real brilliance of Stoicism shines through. It doesn't tell us to despair. It tells us to embrace this truth, to see it as liberation rather than limitation. Think about it. So much of our anxiety, our stress, comes from clinging to things as if they'll last forever. We worry about our careers, about what people think of us, about making the right choices. But what if we truly accepted that none of it is permanent? That in the grand scheme of things, all the little embarrassments, failures, and judgments we fear are nothing more than passing waves on the shore. That realization doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it lighter. It strips away the pressure to be perfect, to be remembered, to be anything other than present in this very moment. Let's take a modern example. Think about social media. People obsess over likes, shares, and comments, desperate to create an online persona that impresses others. They curate their lives, choosing only the best angles, the happiest moments, the most impressive achievements. But scroll down far enough, and you'll see posts from years ago that no one cares about anymore. That once trending topic, forgotten. That viral moment, replaced. Even celebrities who seem larger than life are eventually overshadowed by the next big thing. If people realized how quickly they and their carefully crafted images would be replaced, would they still stress so much about public perception? Would they still tie their happiness to something so fleeting? Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote about how even the applause of the crowd is temporary, how the people who praise you today will soon forget you. He compared human lives to leaves on a tree, growing in the spring, falling in the autumn, and replaced by new ones year after year. It's a sobering thought, but also a freeing one. Because if nothing lasts, then nothing is worth unnecessary worry. If reputation, success, and material possessions all fade, why waste time being consumed by them? Instead, why not focus on what actually matters, living well, treating others with kindness, and making the most of the present moment? And that brings us to another crucial point. Because life is short, there's no time to waste. Think of how many people put off their dreams, telling themselves they'll start someday. Someday, I'll write that book. Someday, I'll take that trip. Someday, I'll tell that person how much they mean to me. But here's the thing. Someday never comes. The future is always just a concept, an idea that shifts further away the more we chase it. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already or is impossible to see. Life isn't happening tomorrow. It's not waiting for the perfect moment. It's happening now. Yet, many of us live as if we have an unlimited supply of time. We scroll endlessly on our phones. We stay in jobs we hate. We hold grudges. We wait for the right time to start living fully. But if we truly grasped how temporary everything is, wouldn't we act differently? Wouldn't we be bolder, kinder, more present? Wouldn't we stop sweating the small stuff and focus on what really counts? This is where Stoicism offers a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of fearing the impermanence of life, we can use it as fuel. The fact that nothing lasts means we have the ultimate reason to make the most of today, not in a reckless, live like there's no tomorrow kind of way, but with intention, with the awareness that time is precious and that how we use it matters. That's what Stoicism asks of us, to be where we are, fully, to stop chasing the illusion of permanence, and instead embrace the beauty of transience. Because in the end, we're all building sandcastles. No matter how strong, how detailed, how grand, the tide will eventually take them. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't build. It means we should enjoy the process, knowing that the joy isn't in making something last forever, but in having been part of it at all. Lesson 3: Accepting misfortune. Life has an annoying habit of ignoring our preferences. You could wish, pray, and even throw a fit for things to go your way, but reality is deaf to complaints. The truth is, no one escapes adversity, not the rich, not the powerful, not even those who seem to have mastered the art of planning every detail of their lives. At some point, something will happen to remind you just how little control you actually have. Take the case of James, a hard-working father of two who had spent years building a comfortable life for his family. He played by the rules, worked overtime, saved money, made responsible choices. He even exercised regularly and ate healthy, thinking he was stacking the odds in his favor. But then, out of nowhere, a company restructuring left him without a job. One moment, he was reviewing budgets for the next quarter. The next, he was holding a severance letter. To make matters worse, just as he was scrambling to find new employment, his doctor gave him another hit, an unexpected medical condition that would require expensive treatment. The illusion of control shattered. The stability he had worked so hard to build seemed to evaporate in an instant. At first, James did what most people do. He fought against reality. He stayed up at night, replaying the layoff in his head, wondering if he could have done something differently. He blamed his former employer, the economy, bad luck. He prayed not for strength, but for the past to be undone. And when that didn't happen, he grew bitter. Life, he thought, was deeply unfair. But what was his suffering really about? Was it just about losing his job and health, or was it about his inability to accept that things were no longer going according to plan? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, would have recognized James's struggle. He knew that most of our suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from our resistance to them. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the essence of Stoicism's dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, and some things aren't. The fastest way to make yourself miserable is to spend all your energy worrying about things you can't change while neglecting the things you can. James, fortunately, had a friend and old mentor who had lived long enough to see his fair share of troubles. One evening, after listening to James vent about how unfair life was, the mentor simply asked, "What's the most useful thing you can do right now?" At first, James wanted to argue. He wanted to say that life had dealt him a bad hand, that he didn't deserve this. But then, something clicked. He had been spending so much time resenting his misfortune that he had done nothing to deal with it. Inspired by this question, he decided to shift his focus. He couldn't undo the layoff, but he could sharpen his skills, reach out to his network, and look for new opportunities. He couldn't magically cure his medical condition, but he could educate himself on treatment options and take control of his daily habits to improve his health. Instead of praying for life to give him back his old stability, he started praying for the resilience to build a new one. This shift in mindset is exactly what Marcus Aurelius preached. Stop hoping for a world without problems and start developing the strength to handle them. Instead of praying, "Please don't let me get fired," pray, "Let me have the strength to handle it if I do." Instead of begging, "Please let this relationship last forever," pray, "Let me be strong enough to handle loss if it comes." Because, no matter how much you wish otherwise, layoffs happen, relationships end, and health declines. The question is not whether you will face adversity. The question is, will you meet it kicking and screaming, or will you face it with the unshakable composure of someone who knows that, while they may not control fate, they do control themselves? James didn't find another job overnight. His health didn't miraculously recover, but his outlook changed. By focusing only on what he could control, he reclaimed his sense of power. He realized that while life would always throw challenges his way, he had the ability to choose how he responded. And that, in the end, made all the difference. The lesson here is clear. If you let your happiness depend on outside circumstances, you let fate control you. But if you train yourself to accept whatever happens and respond with strength, even the worst storms won't shake you. This is Stoicism in action, not wishful thinking, not blind optimism, but real power, the kind that comes from within. Lesson 4: Accepting change. Change is nature's favorite trick. It's everywhere, all the time, whether we like it or not. The seasons roll on, the tides rise and fall, and the cells in your body are constantly renewing themselves, replacing old ones as quietly as a stage crew swapping out props behind the curtain. Even when you think you're staying the same, you're not. Your body isn't the same as it was a year ago. Your thoughts aren't identical to the ones you had 5 years ago. Everything shifts, evolves, transforms. And yet, despite being built for change, we fear it. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood this contradiction. He saw change not as a problem to solve, but as the very essence of life. He compared it to the way our bodies maintain themselves, constantly shedding what's no longer useful and replacing it with something new. If a part of your body could think for itself, it might panic at the loss of an old cell, mourning its departure, clinging desperately to what was. But from the perspective of the whole, this constant renewal is necessary. Without it, the body wouldn't function. The same is true for everything else in the universe. Cities rise and fall, species come and go, ideas are born, flourish, and eventually become outdated. None of it is a mistake. It's simply the way things are. Change, according to Marcus Aurelius, is what keeps the world healthy, what drives progress, what allows life itself to exist. But here's where things get interesting. While we are literally made of change, we resist it with all our might. People cling to routines, to possessions, to relationships, to identities. They want the things that love to stay frozen in time, immune to the inevitable flow of existence. But the change they fear is already happening. The moment you start loving something, it's already shifting, evolving into something else. You don't notice at first, but one day it becomes obvious. The neighborhood you grew up in looks unfamiliar. The music you once adored sounds outdated. The person you were 10 years ago feels like a stranger. And suddenly, you realize nothing stays the same, no matter how hard you try to hold on. Consider the case of Linda. She had spent years building her dream job, working tirelessly to climb the ladder in her industry. She loved the familiarity of her daily routine, the recognition she received, the sense of security. But one day, the company merged with a larger firm, and everything changed overnight. New management came in, old colleagues left, and Linda felt like a guest in her own workplace. She resisted it fiercely, complaining about how things used to be, holding on to the way her job should have been. But that only made things worse. The more she fought the change, the more exhausted and frustrated she became. It wasn't until she stopped resisting, until she let go of the illusion that things could stay the same, that she found peace. She adapted, made the best of the situation, and eventually, when the time was right, moved on to a new opportunity that suited her even better. This is the great irony of life. The more you try to freeze things in place, the more suffering you create for yourself. It's like trying to grasp water in your hands, only to watch it slip through your fingers. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: we are in a river, constantly being carried forward. Which of the things around us should we cling to when none of them offer a firm foothold? If you spend your time grasping at what's already slipping away, you'll be left empty-handed, frustrated, exhausted. But if you learn to move with the current rather than against it, you can find a kind of freedom. Think about how much energy people waste resisting change. They wish they could go back to the good old days, not realizing that those days, when they were happening, didn't seem all that special at the time. They dread aging, not recognizing that every second of life is movement toward something new. They hold on to past versions of themselves, even when those versions no longer serve them. But what if, instead of fearing change, they embraced it? What if, instead of wishing for stability, they learned to ride the waves? This is what Stoicism teaches. Stop expecting the world to stand still. Stop believing that things will remain exactly as they are. The relationship you have today may not last forever. The career you've built may take an unexpected turn. The sense of self you have now may look completely different in a decade. That's not a tragedy. That's nature at work. The solution isn't to grip tighter. It's to loosen your hold, to allow things to be as they are, to let change happen without resisting it. Because once you do, something remarkable happens. You stop feeling like a victim of life's unpredictability. You stop wasting energy on wishing things were different. You start flowing with life instead of against it. And that's where real peace lies, not in freezing time, not in keeping things exactly as they are, but in knowing that, whatever comes next, you'll adapt, you'll grow, and you'll be just fine. Lesson 5. Accepting your nature. Most people, at some point in their lives, stand in front of a mirror and feel a sense of dissatisfaction. Maybe it's their height, their nose, the way their hair thins out as they age. Maybe it's something deeper, wishing they were more naturally athletic, wishing they had a quicker mind, wishing they could change fundamental aspects of themselves. The human tendency to resist what we are is almost universal. But resisting reality is like arguing with gravity. No matter how much you complain, reality doesn't negotiate. Marcus Aurelius understood this struggle well. He too had limitations, physical ailments, the stress of ruling an empire, the ever-looming knowledge that one day, no matter how powerful he was, he would die like everyone else. But instead of falling into the endless cycle of wishing things were different, he trained himself to do something radical: accept. Not just accept grudgingly, but accept with a clear mind, with peace, even with a sense of gratitude. He reminded himself that he was a part of nature, not separate from it, and that just as a tree does not complain that it is not a river, and a wolf does not wish it were a bird, he too had to live in accordance with what he was given. This is where people often get stuck. There's a strange paradox in human nature. We are incredibly adaptable, capable of learning and improving in remarkable ways, and yet we also have inescapable limits. The problem arises when we fixate on the things we cannot change instead of working with the things we can. A person born with a naturally analytical mind might spend years trying to be a professional athlete, fighting against their own strengths rather than embracing them. Another might have the physical potential to be a great dancer, but instead tortures themselves trying to become a mathematician, despite their brains simply not being wired that way. People chase what they lack rather than mastering what they have. It's not that self-improvement is a bad thing. The Stoics weren't against growth, but they believed that growth should be directed wisely. Instead of rebelling against nature, they suggested we align ourselves with it. A fish doesn't waste its time envying a bird's ability to fly. It perfects the art of swimming. A cat doesn't sit around wishing it could run like a cheetah. It refines its own way of moving. The problem with humans is that we often reject this principle. We tell ourselves that life would be perfect if only we were taller, if only we were more charismatic, if only we had different talents. But what if, instead of focusing on what we lack, we double down on what we already have? This shift in mindset does something extraordinary. It frees us from the prison of comparison. It releases us from the constant battle against our own nature. And perhaps most importantly, it lets us play to our actual strengths. The world has seen countless examples of people who excelled not because they had everything, but because they worked with what they had. Some of the greatest thinkers were physically weak, but had minds that changed the course of history. Some of the most inspiring athletes started with physical disadvantages, but used strategy and discipline to overcome them. What they didn't do was waste time wishing they were built differently. But acceptance isn't just about skills or appearance. It extends to everything beyond us, including fate itself. People often live under the illusion that if they resist hard enough, they can prevent bad things from happening. But life does not take orders. Whether it's the slow passage of time that changes our bodies, the unpredictability of relationships, or the randomness of fortune, some things are simply out of our hands. The more we resist, the more suffering we create. Fighting fate is exhausting, like trying to stop the ocean tide with your bare hands. Instead of enjoying the moment, Instead of making the best of the present, people exhaust themselves trying to rewrite the rules of the universe. This is where reason comes in. Unlike animals, humans have the ability to step back and think critically about their own reactions. We are not bound to our immediate impulses. We have the power to override them with logic. Marcus Aurelius found pleasure in keeping his mind clear, in not running from the world, but meeting it head-on. He knew that the world would not always give him what he wanted, but he also knew that he had the ability to adjust his response. This is what makes us different from the rest of the natural world. A lion does not stop to question its hunger, nor does a bird sit in existential crisis over the temporary nature of its nest. But humans, we can recognize when our own desires and fears are leading us astray. We can take a step back and ask, is this resistance serving me, or is it just making me miserable? This is why the Stoics emphasize the power of reason. It allows us to bypass our knee-jerk reactions and make decisions that lead to actual peace rather than endless frustration. Instead of spending our lives chasing things that were never meant for us, we can accept what is and maximize what we have. Instead of wasting energy fearing the inevitable, whether it's aging, failure, or loss, we prepare for it, accept it, even embrace it. Life is not meant to be a constant battle against what is. It is meant to be lived in harmony with the nature of things, including our own nature. That doesn't mean passively surrendering to every hardship, but it does mean choosing our battles wisely. The fight to become a better person. Worth it. The fight to develop resilience and wisdom. Absolutely. But the fight to be something we were never meant to be. That's a war no one has ever won. So, perhaps the real challenge is not changing the world, not even changing ourselves in ways that defy nature, but changing how we see things. The moment we stop wishing for a different reality and start working with the one we have, life becomes a whole lot lighter. And ironically, it's in that acceptance, not resistance, that real growth happens. Conclusion. So, here we are. After all this talk of wanting and resisting, clinging and fearing, it all comes down to one simple truth. Life doesn't care about your wish list. It moves, it changes, it takes, it gives. You can fight it, you can beg it to slow down, you can try to force it into submission, but that's like trying to hold back a hurricane with a paper umbrella. The wiser move? Let go. Stop wrestling with reality like an overenthusiastic toddler refusing a nap. Instead, do what Marcus Aurelius did. Accept not with defeat, but with strength, not with apathy, but with clarity. Because when you stop wanting everything to be different, you start seeing what's actually in front of you. And you realize this moment, this life, as imperfect and unpredictable as it is enough. It always has been. So, if this resonated with you, if you're ready to trade wishing for wisdom, hit that subscribe button. More Stoic insights, more hard-hitting truths, and yes, more reminders that reality is undefeated are coming your way. Now go forth, accept the chaos, and maybe, just maybe, find peace in it.